Organisations with interest rate exposures need to ensure they have appropriate policies and procedures in place to manage those exposures. It is recommended that such organisations follow an interest rate risk management framework. Step 1 is more so related to understanding the core criteria and specifically the key strategic objectives and the overall operating environment. Part of the role is to find out what stakeholder expectations are with regard to risk management. Also, it is important to identify the business and industry drivers, that is, what causes risk and returns to occur. In Step 2, we need to assess our exposures to interest rates. Do we have exposures from loans or deposits outstanding, or particular contract clauses, for example? We need to ask ourselves, if interest rates move, will there be any impact on our business, whether directly through an interest rate change on a deposit or loan, or indirectly through changes in demand for our products or changes in exchange rates, for example? As part of this analysis, we want to know whether we have any timing mismatches between maturing borrowings and investments. To determine the overall exposure, we need to consider any effects from both primary and secondary offsets. Primary offsets relate to exposures that naturally offset the identified risks, such as an offsetting investment to an existing borrowing, or a price adjustment clause in a business contract. Secondary offsets are the financial market-based adjustments, which relate to movements in derivatives that will adjust or affect the organisation's exposures. Step 3 involves the board setting goals, objectives and tolerances for the risk management of the identified interest rate risk. The setting of benchmarks for returns and margins, as well as for the fixed and floating hedging ratios, is undertaken in this step. This is the step where risk ratings are applied based on the probability and consequence of the given risks. When combined with the goals and tolerances, decisions can be made as to how the risk will be managed and what actions need to be taken. Step 4 is where we actually set about managing the risk using financial restructuring. Here, we specifically look for secondary positions in financial markets and instruments, such as forwards, futures, swaps and options. However, it can also refer to the restructuring of a particular instrument that is causing the exposure. For example, undertaking a debt restructure to reduce the exposures. In Step 5, the focus is on accounting and controls. Perhaps the biggest impact for accountants is the measurement and recording of derivatives on the balance sheet. Calculating the fair values of swaps and options can be complex and time-consuming, but provides organisations and users of financial statements with a more realistic view of the organisation's financial position. Internal reporting of interest rate risk management is also important and should include information on interest rate sensitivity and hedging ratios. It's important to consider the interest rate risk management framework as a guide rather than locked-in sequential rules. The items are listed in steps to help differentiate key tasks, but those tasks are not always undertaken in isolation. For example, steps 2, 3 and 4 may be happening in parallel, and it is also possible for step 4 to be undertaken and then go back to step 2 to reassess exposures. The key message is that a risk management framework is an important and useful tool for promoting good governance and management of interest rate risks.